Greetings, Commanders. This is Commander Atlas Rand, and today we're going to finish up my multi-part series on ship components, ship weapons, and finally now today, ship internal optional components, which is the single biggest group or category of things that you can modify your ship with. So just as a reminder, we've done the hard points, which are the weapons. We've done the utility mounts, which are sort of ancillary components. We've done the core internals, which let you greatly affect the stability of the ship, the durability of the ship, and the distances that you jump or the speed at which you do it. We looked at one of the vehicle bays. Well, we actually looked at planetary. We did not look at fighter bays because I kind of consider that to be a more advanced topic than for beginner. We looked at all those things, and the only one left now is the optional internal components, and we saved that for last just because there's so many items in that category. So let me pop that open, and we are once again parked at a I always forget what the damn thing's called. Stronghold carrier. That's what it's called. We're parked at a stronghold carrier. Different one this time. But we'll go ahead and start looking at different options for internal optional components. AFMS. You've probably seen this and wondered what it is. AFMS stands for Auto Field Maintenance Unit. That may still not tell you anything. AFMS is essentially the thing that lets you repair other components in your ship while you're in your ship. So I'll give you an example, what it looks like. If I go to my right side, not map. If I go to my right side panel right here, and then I go to modules, you can see that different modules have health. Now, all of these happen to be at 100% right now because I'm parked in a station and I repaired my ship. But if I overheat the ship, or if I get attacked, or if I ram the ground too hard, these are all things that may end up causing damage to the percentage of health of the components. And so what this AFMU allows you to do is to repair any of these components by going to this screen, hitting space to select the component, and then you can see repair is grayed out. It's grayed out for two reasons. One is it's already at 100%, doesn't need repair, but two, we don't have an AFMU installed. But if we did, you could just go here, hit the space bar to turn it on, and it would start slowly repairing this fuel scoop in this instance. While we're here, if you expand the info, you can see more of the information about what you have actually installed. You see the boot time, the power, how much power it's taking, the scoop rate, all that good stuff. But what we're going to do is go back here. And generally, for most ships, if I'm going to put an AFMU in there, I'm going to put in a, not a very large one. Now, military ships specifically going against Thargoids might actually have bigger ones. But for more ships, I'm probably going to put a size 2, maybe a size 3 in there. All right. So if we go here, AFMU, and you'll see they come in all the sizes, all the way up to 5 or 6, I guess. And they come in A through E qualities. The letter determines how much stuff it has to repair. So how much repair material. So we're going to put in a size 2 in here, and so we want the most material. So we're going to put a 2A in there. And that should be plenty for just non-military flying around. If the ship gets components damaged through heat, this will be able to repair it fairly quickly. And it has plenty of capacity, 2,500, which is enough to repair like a single large component from almost zero, or a lot of different components, but not from zero, obviously. I'm going to actually shut down an app that's making that chirpy noise, just so it's not making noise while I'm recording things the whole time. All right, so let's go back here. What else do we have? We have cargo racks. This is, I think, fairly self-explanatory. You can get cargo racks in almost any size. Well, any size of your available space, that's for sure. So with that in mind, the only other option that you can have here, and it'll depend on whether you've unlocked it. So for beginners, you won't see this, is anti-corrosion cargo racks. And those are available once it's unlocked in order to be able to move Thargoid pieces around that may be corrosive. So most people will not need that. It's something that you really only need if you're going to be fighting Thargoids. And if you're going to have limpets in your ships, you will need a cargo rack, obviously. Next, we have collector limpets, probably the most common type of limpet. Limpets are drones. And collector limpets are what you would use to scoop things up. Let me kill that thing so it's not making noise. It didn't want to go by itself, so I'm going to have to accelerate it a little bit by force quitting it. And there it goes. Okay, good. So, collector limpets, you have a range from A to E. Never get an E, that's the horrible one. D collector limpets, not horribly useful because their range is really crappy, but they are the lightest ones that are available. But they only go 600 meters. C, 1,000 meters, still not very good. B, 1,400 meters. This is actually the longest distance for this size, for the one size. And then A actually don't go as far. They only go 1,200 meters instead of 1,400 meters. But you can see the differences as I'm moving the mouse back and forth. But they last twice as long. So you can see limpet lifetime is 720 seconds, which is, what is that? Over 10 minutes. So what is that, 12 minutes? Or no, it's 60, yeah. So, so 600 would be 10 minutes. This is, okay, what is making that noise? I thought it was this thing. Apparently it's not. Something else is making that noise. All right. I don't even know if you guys hear it, but I hear a little chirpy noise coming through here. And I didn't think it was the game itself. Maybe it is the game. Anyway. So usually if you want the most distance, you're going to get a B. If you want them to stick around the longest without dying, you're going to get an A. And that would be 12 minutes, which is pretty darn good for lifetime. And then of course you have different sizes. So size 1s will have the least range, and it'll only let out one limpet at a time. And they're odd numbers. So like a size 3, let me go to a 3A right there. It'll let out 2 of them at the same time. The range is just a little bit more. You're going from 1,200 to 1,320 for the range. This is for an A-rated. And of course, it's the same 12-minute lifetime available. Now if we go to the 5A right there, you can see that now you can, okay, I have no idea what's making that noise, guys. If you can hear a noise, it's probably the game. If you can't hear noise, then I guess I'm the only one that can hear it, and I will deal with it. So, if you're going to put in a size 5A, I was on here, you can have 3 of them. Range is 1560, so more than the 13 whatever of the size 3 or the 1200 of the size 1. Everything else I think is pretty much the same. The one thing that does go up a lot, so I'm going to go between 5A and 3A, you can see how much difference in weight is, or mass. So from 8 tons to 32 tons. So you're going from 2 at a time to 3 at a time. So you're only adding 1 more limpet, but you're quadrupling the mass of the thing. And remember, on small ships in particular, the more mass, the less jump range you have. So if you're outfitting a smaller ship, maybe using a size 3 or even size 1, which is only 2 tons, would make more sense. Yeah, it's gotta, I don't have anything else running. It's gotta be the game making the chirpy noise, if you guys hear that at all. And I'll try and ignore it moving forward. And then, of course, beyond size 5, we also have a size 7. And a size 7A right here would be 128 tons. So again, 4 times more. But it would drop 4 limpets at the same time. And the range is 2,000. And the longest range is going to be a 7B right there, which is 2,380 versus 2,040. So an extra about 340 meters of range if you go with the Bs. But they don't last nearly as long. They last, I guess, about 6-7 minutes. Whereas, yeah, I think 7. Whereas these are going to last you 12 minutes. So that's your collector limpets. Now, might as well do the rest of the limpets since I've started talking about them. This is alphabetical, so I'm going to jump around a little bit. Fuel transfer limpets. You once again have different sizes of them, and you have A through E. And you'll see the biggest difference is, once again, the distance that they go. But each one of these, no matter whether it's an A, B, C, D, or E, only carries 1 ton of fuel. If we go up to, let's say, a size 5, they still carry 1 ton of fuel. So the only thing going from size 3 to size 5 is it allows you to have 4 maximum limpets. And going with a size 7 lets you have 8 maximum limpets. And, of course, the distance also increases. So 5 is 1,800. 3 was 1,500. And then 1 was 1,400. And you only have the 1 out at a time. Most of the time, the only reason you're carrying a fuel transfer limpet is because a friend of yours got stuck somewhere without a fuel and you're going to rescue them. And it's kind of interesting gameplay to do that. All you really need to do is slap one of these 1As in there. Or, potentially... Okay, something is still running that shouldn't be running. Damn it. Oh, I found it, I think. Let me force quit it. There we go. So you're going to generally just get a 1A. If you want to just speed things up and you have a larger ship you're jumping in, throw a 3A or something in there. Now in these, the Bs are not longer. That was just for collectors. So for the fuel transfer limpets, the A actually has the longest range in all these categories. But they're very rarely used, and if you're going to use them, you might only use them very occasionally. I think I've used them about once a year myself. Hatchbreaker limpets, another type of limpet, again from A to E. That'll determine the distance as well as the, I guess, the hacking time. So how long it takes to hack, with E being 22 seconds and A being just 10 seconds. These limpets, the hatchbreaker limpets, are basically for piracy. They are used if you are going to be stealing cargo from somebody else. Now, it could be an NPC, could be another human. It could be you're stealing back cargo that somebody stole from you and you want to get it back. So you could have some legitimate sort of, kind of, but not really uses for these. But generally, these are for stealing cargo. The larger size ones, they're just going to hack faster. And these will carry a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 10 cargo. If we go down to the 3s, they're going to carry the same 5 to 10. The 1s, we go same 5 to 10 cargo. So the cargo amount doesn't seem to change. The difference is going to be the distance that they can travel. And let's see what 7s are. 7s can go 6,000 meters away. So they'll fly out, although they don't fly very fast, I'll tell you that. But they will fly out to another ship within 6 kilometers of your ship to then break into that ship and then be able to steal anywhere between 5 and 10 cargo units. All right. So let's see what else we get here. So that's a hash brake. Okay, we have the multi-limpet controllers. Might as well cover these. The multi-limpet controllers are more recent introduction to the game. Two things to remember about them. One is they're much, much heavier than other sized 3 controllers. And if you get a size 7, it's insanely heavy. So only for big ships, but even for big ships, it's going to drastically reduce the jump range. These are either 125 or 140 tons for size 7. Or for size 6, they're anywhere from 8 to 15 tons. I think that's 8 to 15 tons for the range. What do? Well, they combine several options that you can do with limpets and stick them all into the same controller. The mining ones are combining the 2 types of limpets that you would use for mining, which is prospectors and collectors. The rescue is combining fuel transfer, hatch breaker, no idea why hatch breaker would be there, and repair limpets. Like, repair limpets make sense. Fuel transfer makes sense if you're trying to rescue. Why you would then hatch break them and steal their cargo? Not so much. There's 2 types of rescue limpets. You always want to get the better type. Even though it's going to weigh a little bit more, it's going to have, greater range. It'll have other positive benefits. And I'll kind of go through and explain why these are actually usually the worst way to go is the multi-controllers. Operational, this has a collector limpet, a recon limpet, and a hatch breaker limpet. So it's actually one of the same as the rescue limpet, the hatch breaker, and then but it also has a collector and a recon limpet. And then mining, we looked at the worst mining, and the 3C is the best of the minings. And you could actually, it's even lighter. That's interesting. So the E is heavier and it's worse. It has shorter range. The C is giving you a better range. And then it has a collector and a prospector. And then the B operations, we saw the C, just again, has a better range, longer. Well, it should have a longer lifetime. I'm not sure why that's showing differently. It looks like it collects more cargo. So, here's the way these actually are set up. All of the multi-controllers have limpet properties that are 1 tier lower than the controller. So you can see, like in this operations controller B, we have a collector, recon, and hatch breaker. But let's focus on the collector, right? So it has a collector and this is coming from a 3B. What you actually get as part of that is a collector, but not a size 3 collector, not like a 3B equivalent collector. You're getting a 1B equivalent collector. So it's 1 tier down. So size 3 multi-limpets controllers give you the same limpets as a size 1 dedicated limpet controller. So you can see you're basically getting this plus 2 other types of limpets, but all of them are going to be size 1 basically. But they're all going to be stuck into a size 3 controller. So that's kind of the trade-off. And with the size 7 multi-limpet controller, it's the exact same thing, except you're going from 7 to 5. So the size 7 multi-limpet controller has 7 different types of limpets in there, which is great. It's awesome. So it gives you a good combination of limpets that you can bring with you. But it's the exact same quality of limpets, or not even so much quality, but the same parameters, the same spec limpets as bringing a whole bunch of size 5 controllers. The letter actually stays the same. So the 7C controller has limpets that are equivalent to a size 5C. The 7A multi-limpet controller has limpets that are equivalent to a size 5A. So that's actually, even though it's the heaviest thing there, it's heavier than this one. This one's 125, the A is 140. So it's worse in that regard, but you're getting a better quality limpet. Going from C to A limpet is generally worth the rationale for it. Likewise, with all these 3 controllers, the best quality of the 3 combination controllers of the multi-limpet controllers is this one. It's the 3B operations. So it gives you a size 1B collector, 1B recon, and a 1B hatchbreaker. Some people will use this 3B operations limpet controller simply to have more size 1 collectors. Because remember, a size 1 collector only gives you 1 single limpet. A size 3 gives you 2 limpets. This is in dedicated controllers. A size 5 gives you 3, and a size 7 gives you 4. But if you look at this, if you look at the specs on the right side, you can see that this size 3 gives you 4 active limpets. So it's sort of a way to somewhat cheat the system, but you're also getting many negatives. So you could put in a single size 3B operations limpet controller and then have 4 equivalent to 4 size 1B limpets. Sometimes that's not a bad trade-off. Just keep in mind it's going to weigh quite a bit more than dedicated controllers. And none of these are engineerable, at least right now. Whereas the individual limpet controllers, you can engineer and enhance some of their specs. All right, so from multi, next one is Prospector. You already saw that the multis include the capability of prospectors. This goes all the way up to 7 again, and you have a range of A to E. What's going to be the main difference? It's going to be the distance that they can travel. So like a 1A is 7,000 meters. A 1D is only 4,000 meters. Pretty much all the other specs are similar, although obviously the A draws a little bit more power than the worst quality ones. What do you use them for? You use them as part of mining. You launch them at an asteroid, and when this thing grabs onto an asteroid, it'll send back information about the asteroid telling you what's in that asteroid. Like, what is the composition of the asteroid, and that'll tell you whether you want to mine it or not. Recon limpets. So, recon limpets have 2 main uses. One is associated with Power Play 2.0, which is one of the many myriad of things you can do in the game. But if you get aligned to a superpower, it'll give you missions to go work against its enemy powers. One of those things could end up hacking the billboards of an enemy station. This would be a limpet that could do that. The other use for this is when you either have missions or just doing it out of your own interest, and you fly into a system that has a megaship parked in there, but not a megaship that you like can go and land on, but a megaship that is just there, but you don't really know much about it. Generally, those megaships are meant for just PvE content, so you can fly there. If you start attacking it, it'll shoot back at you, and other people will show up, other NPCs will show up, or you get missions, for example, to scan the data in the megaship, or to steal data, or even steal cargo from a megaship. To do all that scanning, you will need to use this recon limpet. And I know it's technically not completely 100% accurate. You actually do scan with scanners, but you will need a recon limpet in order to be able to go in there and pull data out of the ship. All right, Prospect Recon. Repair, last limpet type is the repair limpet. These can either repair your own ship or they can repair an enemy ship. Now, how are these different from the AFMUs that I talked about earlier? The AFMU can repair different modules in your ship. The repair limpet, this guy, will actually repair the hull of your ship. So he's outside the ship and then using a little laser beam and presumably some quantity of repairable material that he's got on board to repair the exterior of your ship. So if you have both a repair limpet and an AFMU, that means you can repair the vast majority of damage done to your ship. The only thing you can't repair with either one of these is your power plant. Whatever damage the power plant takes is essentially permanent. Again, there's some more advanced things you may be able to do, and if you reboot your ship, you may get a little bit of repair going on there as well. And incidentally, I think I showed this in the video that talked about what you have as part of your panel here. But if you go to the ship panel, you could see right at the top in this first one, this reboot repair. I can't do it right now because the ship's at 100%. Everything, like, there is nothing to repair. But if you had some damage, if you go here, hit reboot repair, it would take the ship offline, which means the ship's not flying. Everything's shut down. You're breathing reserve oxygen supplies. You can't move the ship. You can't see anything on the ship. All electronics are off. But for about 10 seconds or so, it's going to go through and repair what it can, which is, it's basically going to make some components be worse. It'll break them more, but then use that to repair some other components. And that's one of the few ways that you can get a little bit of repair about your power plant. Generally, whatever damage you get to your power plant is you're pretty much done. All right, so we've done all the limpets, guys. So let's, this would be the next one then, FSD boosters. So these are Guardian components. So this is not a beginner topic, but I'll just show you so you know it exists. And I have other videos that tell you how to go and get the materials for these things. But what a booster does is it allows you to increase your jump range. So let's say if I go back here, my jump range in the ship that I'm currently in is 62 light years, which is actually pretty good, but it's also completely empty. So if I go here and I grab this Guardian frameshift drive booster and I install it, my range goes up to 72, which is pretty good. I actually would probably swap these around, but because this can only come in size 5 is the biggest, so I would put it there. I could get a size 6 fuel scoop, so I would actually swap these two around probably. Like, you could do it this way. Boom. There we go. They're swapped around. And then I could replace and... but before we get to fuel scoops, next group is flight assists. Only 2 things in here, and that's Super Cruise Assist and advanced or standard docking computer. Never bother with the standard. There's no point to it, really. So if you're going to have a docking computer at all, get an advanced one. If you're going to have a Super Cruise, well, there's only one Super Cruise. That's the one you would get. But the docking computer's job is to land you. The advanced docking computer will not just land you, it'll also take you out of a station as well. And it's basically the same thing. There's no point in giving up that functionality. So always go with advanced, or just go with no docking computer and manually land and take off. Super Cruise, I have a whole separate, I think more than one video on Super Cruise Assist and the benefits of it. So I'm not really going to cover that here, but that's where it's available. Fuel scoops, there we go. So you can see that we have a bunch of fuel scoops from size 1 to size 7 or 8? 8, all the way up to size 8, and qualities from A to E. The difference is going to be price. You can see it's a huge difference, in fact. So like right now we have a size 5 fuel scoop, which is 7 million that I've loaded in, but we could put a size 6, but the price goes up to 24 million. So it's 7 to 24. So it's about a 3.5 times increase in price. And what do you get for that? Well, it uses more power, so that's a negative. It's got a higher integrity, so it lasts longer in battle. Doesn't matter for most things. It weighs more. That's not really good. But the main benefit you're going to get from a larger size fuel scoop is how quickly it'll be able to scoop up the hydrogen when you're next to a sun. So if you have a size 5, if that takes, let's say, 10 seconds to fully recharge you, a size 6 is going to be roughly 50% faster than that. So it won't be half the amount of time, but you can shave off, it's going to be 50% faster. So I guess it'll be 7.5 seconds, I guess. Or maybe 6.6. Yeah, probably 6.6 seconds instead of 10 seconds to fully fill up. And then that's the same thing as you get bigger and bigger and bigger. Conversely, if you go from a size 5, and this is assuming you're getting A's for all of these, you go from a size 5 to a size 4, just plan on the amount of time that it takes to refuel to go up by 50% or so. So if it takes 10 here, going to a 4, you're at 15 seconds. Going to a 3, you're going to be at, 20 some seconds, 24 seconds or something. And you can see that is indicated by the scoop amount. So the scoop amount for a 6 is 88. Scoop amount for 5 is 58. So it's actually, actually, I think it is about a third. But I just always have noticed it empirically that it's about a third, but you can calculate the exact numbers. And this is tons per second. So I would guess like a size 7 is probably 1 ton per second. Let's check. Ooh, 1.25 ton per second. That's a big difference, big jump. From the 7 to the 6.88. Yeah. So this one is definitely more than the third jump going from a 6 to a 7. And how about 7 to 8? Now that's now a smaller size jump. So there you go. They're not linear apparently. But either way, the biggest scoop you can manage to put in is going to help you fuel faster. And if like on some ships, I just had like a military ship. I may have had a size 2 scoop, like a 2A, like one of this right here. And it's going to take probably 5 minutes to fuel up my tank. Why do I bother putting that on? Because I've been in situations where I've run out of fuel. I've made jump after jump after jump and thinking, oh, I'm going to make it. I'm really close, but I'll make it. I'll get there. And I don't get there. And so I have to either send in another ship to rescue that ship, use the fuel rats, which is something you should Google if you haven't. Fuel rats are awesome. Or, try and make a very small jump, hopefully to a system that has a station. But if I have a little fuel scoop, so it's not taking up much space, that means in case of emergency, I can still get up to a sun. I can just park the ship there, go grab a soda or something, and still refuel my fuel tank. Just do it much slower. Next, where are we? Fuel tank. Okay, we talked about fuel transfer, limpets. Okay, we haven't talked about fuel tanks. So another thing you can do is slap on an auxiliary fuel tank or several. So whatever amount of space you have in optional internals, like you can see in this ship, we have 2 4s. I could theoretically go in here and buy a couple of size 4 fuel tanks. That will give me a capacity of 16 per tank of additional fuel. What do we have in a ship by default? So that would be in the core internals. Fuel tank is a size 5, so it's the capacity of 32. So if we slap in a couple of 4s in here, fuel tanks, that would be also 32. So I could double the amount of fuel tank that I have. There's pros and cons to this. The obvious pro is you don't have to refuel as often. You can make more jumps without refueling at all. The con is your ship's jump range is affected by its mass. And when you have an additional 32 tons of fuel aboard, your mass is 32 tons higher. So your range for jumping will actually decrease. And you can see this if I go back and watch this area on the bottom middle. If I go in and I click on fuel tanks, you can see that it says 72 minimum jump range, right? And what if I put a size 2 fuel tank? That drops to 71. Not a big deal. If I put a size 3, it drops to just over 70. Put a size 4, it drops to 69.6. And if I was installing this in other slots, I could potentially put a size 6. If I wanted to put that instead of a scoop, that would drop my jump range to 62. So there is a penalty for having more fuel aboard. Keep that in mind. Talked about the transfer limpet, the hatch brake limpet, hull reinforcements. Hull reinforcements should be fairly obvious. They are exactly what you think they are. They increase the amount of hit points that the ship has. The hit points are right here on the right. It's 150 for this one. It's 80 for this one. Let's go all the way up to this one, which is the largest I have room for on this ship. That would increase by 330. And the largest that you can possibly get would be this one, and that would increase it by 390. There are no more size 6 or 7 or 8. The size 5 is the largest size, and 5D is the biggest number of hit points. The E is actually less. And then the size goes down after that. So increases hit points and slightly increases the resistances across the board of the ship. This is something that engineering makes a huge impact to. Big difference. If you start engineering this, you will double this 360 to over 700. Over 720, in fact. You'll also increase the resistances slightly on these as well. Although not super greatly. So engineering for these will make a big difference. Who would use these? Most ships you really don't use hull reinforcements in. Any ship that might get into combat, however, it's good to use hull reinforcements for. So what kind of ships do I have this on? All my ships for doing NPC fighting, whether it's for NPC people or NPC aliens, the Thargoids, all of them have hull reinforcement. The Thargoids additionally just absolutely annihilate your shields. So for the Thargoid related ships, I have no shields, but I have even more hull reinforcements. I pretty much fill up the entire ship with nothing but hull reinforcements just to make it last a lot longer when fighting an alien Thargoid. For ships that I'm using against NPC people, those ships are generally going to rely on shields more than a hull. So you still want to have enough that if you lose your shields, you have enough hull to take damage, enough hit points that you can still run away and warp out. If you're doing pure hull, then obviously you need a lot more than that. Then you also have module reinforcement. What does this do? Well, module reinforcement is, remember, these are the two things that we were fixing. You could fix hull with the repair limpet, or you could fix the modules with an AFMU. Module reinforcement makes the modules take less damage when there's damage to be taken. So effectively, the module reinforcement absorbs a large chunk of the damage that the modules are going to take. However, not necessarily heat damage. It will absorb some heat damage from my experience, but not as much heat damage as damage from your modules actually getting attacked by another NPC or player, or the kind of damage that you would suffer if you actually have physical damage to your modules. So for pure heat, I think this still does help, but it's not like the module reinforcement is going to go to 0 and then your modules are going to take some damage. This will only take a portion of your damage. In fact, if you look at these like a 2D versus a 1D, you can see how much more reinforcement they add. And you can see that they will protect for a maximum of 60%, whereas the E-rated will protect for a maximum of 30%. So the E-rated has slightly more integrity, but only 30% protection. The D has a little bit less integrity, but quite a bit more damage protection. So always go for the D-rated modules and basically figure out what your ship can put in it. And it's the exact same thing for the hull. There's D and E, and you want to go for the D anytime you're buying one. Don't bother with the E-rated ones. For typical setups, I will put one of these, and usually not a very big one, on an exploration ship or a hauling ship or anything that shouldn't generally be involved in combat. If a ship's involved in combat, I'll either put a size 5 on there, or I may put several size 3s or several size 2s and 4s, basically to give it a little more buffer, a little more combination. If this is only going to protect me from 60% of the damage, then I want to have double the amount of protection so that the 60% lasts longer. So that's the basic train of thought with modules. Are you talking about that? Passenger cabins. So 3 types of passenger cabins and several sizes of passenger cabins. The 3 types are economy, business, first class, and I think there's one actually, there might be a 4th. I'm not seeing them, but I think there is like a super premium or luxury. I think it's called luxury. The luxury you can only put into a few ships in the game. Ships like the Dolphin, the Beluga, basically ships of the same company manufacturer. But all the other ships can have first, business, or economy cabins. The first class cabins hold the least number of people, but they do it comfortably. The business cabins hold double the number of people with still some level of luxury. And then the economy hold the most people with no level of luxury in them. And you can see size-wise, the largest cabins you can get is a size 6. There's no 7 or 8 cabins. And you're basically using these for missions that are going to transport people. There's really no other use for them other than missions. I guess technically speaking, even though you can't really call them missions, they're still sort of missions. And that is rescuing people. Yeah, they're still missions. I would still call them as missions. Rescuing people from bases that have been attacked by the aliens, by the Thargoids. So there's missions to rescue people. They don't care about luxury. They just want to get out of there. So the cheapest economies will work for that. If you just want to do tourism, then some tourists will be economy, some will be business, and some will expect first class only. Tourist missions used to pay pretty well. I don't think they pay as well, relatively speaking, anymore. So not as many people do them. But the basic idea of a tourist mission is you go to a station, you get the mission, which will have you picking up X number of people. Let's say you picked up 3 people. They want to be in first class. You get one of these cabins installed. They're in the ship, and then you fly them to the destination that they want to go to. However, the annoying thing about doing that is they're going to be complaining the entire time. They're going to tell you you're going too fast. They're going to tell you you're going too close to the sun. They're going to tell you that they're running late and they need you to get there sooner. It's just a lot of variety of complaints by these people, to the point where by the time you have flown them, you just want to chuck them out of the air. God, what am I thinking? I'm blanking out. Out of the entrance, right? Out of the exit of the ship. Because they're going to be annoying. So I don't recommend doing these missions at all. If you want to try doing them, then you can pick up some cabins, put them in a ship. If you really like doing them, you can buy a specialty ship that has the luxury cabins and do some of those missions. I don't find that at all interesting. Planetary vehicles, we already covered. Covered these limpets. Refinery. So this is another must-have component for mining. So you have collector limpets that will collect the materials that you've chipped off with your mining lasers. So you got to have mining lasers first. Then you have collector limpets to collect the little chips and rocks that you've knocked off and bring them back to your ship. Then you need to have a refinery, which is where that material goes. And then the refinery converts that sort of raw material that's knocked off rocks, off asteroids, into actual sellable materials, which will go into your cargo hold. So you also need to have some cargo hold space, which means you're going to need to have cargo racks. So cargo racks, mining lasers, collector limpets, where are they? Prospecting limpets, so you know what's in the rock you're shooting at. And then one additional thing that I think I already covered in here, which is a pulse wave analyzer. So the pulse wave analyzer shoots basically like a radar pulse. It shows you which rocks are interesting enough for you to send a prospector to. Those rocks are going to be yellow colored. You send the prospector. Based on what the prospector tells you, you would then proceed to get close to it, use your mining lasers, shoot at the rock. It'll start having stuff chipped off. Your collector limpets will grab it, bring it in, and then put it into your refinery. And then out of the refinery, it'll automatically go into your cargo racks. So that's the basic mining process. And I've got a few videos specifically on mining if you want to watch how to do that. And you could start doing that fairly early. That's not like even a mid-game activity. It's not a super beginner activity. There's a few other things that are going to be better for pure beginners because they have a lower startup cost. Mining, you still have to buy a bunch of this stuff. But if you want to get into mining, you probably do it after about a week of playing the game. Where you talked about repair limpets, then we have a couple of shield categories and a surface scanner. Let me tell you about the surface scanner first. This is also potentially needed for mining, but really only if you're going to mine the system that you've never mined before. The surface scanner, like its name says, and there's only one type. Well, I guess there's one type. It's the standard one. There's also a pre-engineered, much more expensive version, which you can get, but don't worry about that for now. Just use the standard one. What it does is it lets you launch probes. It carries an unlimited number of probes, so you never run out. Lets you launch them at planets to determine what's on that planet, to do a scan. But also, as it relates to mining, it lets you launch them at the rings around planets. So if you get up close to a ring, not like super close where you crash into it, but fairly close, and then stop while you're in hyperdrive, while you're in hyperspace, while you're in a frame shift, drive is running at that point, and then use the surface scanner to shoot at the rings around the planet. It will actually scan the rings for mineral deposits, and it'll tell you if there are any high deposit areas of a particular type of mineral. It'll tell you where they are. And that's where you would then go, fly to, drop out of warp, and then start going through the process I described. So you would drop out of warp, then you would use the pulse scanner, which is this thing, pulse wave analyzer. So after you've already gotten to that hot spot, you dropped out, you're next to rocks, you would use this, it would light up a number of different rocks. So then you would start actually moving in normal impulse speed to that rock, and then shoot it with the where am I here? Shoot it with a prospector limpet. And if the prospector limpet tells you it's a rock worth mining, then you get up close to it and then use mining lasers. And I can show you those real quick as well. So hard points, mining tools. Remember, we have a variety of different mining lasers, and I said back then that size 2s are always preferable because they work twice as fast as the size 1s. So you'll get the same amount of material, but twice as quickly. And it's all about time when you're mining, because the less time it takes you to fill up your cargo, the more you make per hour. So that's the mining process. Let's go back to, I think there's only a couple things left. Go back here. Yeah, so that was the surface scanner. Already talked about that. Last two things are shields. So you have shield cell banks and you have shield generators. You will need one shield generator. And there's two basic types. There's one called biweave, and there's just shield generator. What's the difference between those two? The shield generator is sort of your default shields. You've got the specs on the right side here. The biweave difference between them is the biweave doesn't provide quite as much protection, but it's much faster at going from 0 to full, or from 50% to full, or from 0 to 50%. All of those are faster. So essentially, if you're going to be going in an area where you need a lot of shields, and when your shields are depleted, you're just going to leave. Like you're going to fight until your shields are low, and then you're going to fly out. Then shield generator is probably the way to go, because you're going to have higher level of shielding. And if I go here, you can see my shield strength with this would be 290. What's the biggest one? Okay. So, yeah, actually, I won't. So, let's go with size 5. That's a good size. So size 5, you're going to have 312 shields. If you go with a size 5 bi-weave, which is right here, it's going to be 290. So 290 versus 312. Not a huge difference, but look at your regen rates down here. So this is 1 and 3.7. For the bi-weave, it's 2 and 5.6. So it's about double, twice as fast to regenerate the shields. And what you're giving up is your 290, your 312 is not a huge amount, right? So bi-weave actually makes a lot of sense. However, once you engineer these, the difference becomes bigger. The bi-weave will never get quite as close to the shield, regular shield, as it does without any engineering. So the regular shield gives you a lot more, well, it gives you some more. I don't even want to say a lot. It gives you some more protection, but at the cost of slower regeneration of shields. If you're going to do, so these are the only two types you guys are going to see. If you stick with the game, you're going to do power play. Eventually, you're going to unlock a third type of shield called a prismatic. And a prismatic shield is essentially double the capacity of a regular shield's one size, or it's a, I mean, how do I phrase it? It's not double. It is the capacity of the next size up regular shield. So we have here a, let's see if we can find ones that are close. So like a 5, okay, here we go. 5A regular, okay? 356. So a prismatic should have as much in the size 5 shield, so it's still a size 5, but it would have as much shield as a 6A that I'm going to go over here, which is 374. So 374, 356. And again, these differences grow more as you do engineering. So right now they're all fairly close together, but you could see if the biggest shield I can put on the ship is a size 5, I'm going to get 356. If I put in a prismatic, I'm going to get 422, which should be, well, it's actually even more than, but with engineering, it comes out to about the same as what this would be fully engineered. So would this be fully engineered? But yeah, without engineering, that's interesting. So it's even a bigger difference. So a size 5 prismatic is equivalent to a, I wonder if it's, let's check what a size 4 prismatic is. Size 4 prismatic is 367, and a size 6 is 374. So it's almost 2 sizes up. So prismatic shields, you could go from a size 4 prismatic will give you almost as much as a size 6 regular. Until you get engineering involved, and then those differences aren't going to be as much. They're actually going to be closer. But either way, you're not going to see prismatic if you're a fairly new player to the game. You're not going to see it until you're in Power Play 2.0, probably for at least 3 to 4 weeks of like pretty intense doing the missions. That would be about the earliest you can unlock that. And then the last thing in here is shield cell banks. What are these? Well, shield cell banks are basically batteries or capacitors. They hold energy that you can transfer into the shields if the shields are running low. So you saw that like the capacity on some of those shields were 360. Let's say it goes from 360 at full capacity down to about 10% full. It's almost blown the shields. You barely have any. You can use energy from a shield cell bank. Let's get a bigger one here, like this size 5 one, or let's say a size 4. So this size 4, it will repair the shield or increase the amount of shield for 46 points per second for 3 seconds. So 3 times 46, so about 120, 130. So you can add back in 130 shield strength in about 3 seconds. And then it's got to, take a little bit of time to rest, 25 seconds in between them. But then after another 25 seconds, you can do that again. It'll have 3 loads for this one. If you go with a B rated, it'll have 4 loads. So that's the A's have 3, the B's have 4, but the A's put in more than the B's do per second. So this 3 times 48, the B is 4 times 41. So there's some pros and cons. Some people like using the A's, other people like using the B's. It gets into a little more advanced topic. But the bottom line is if you put a shield cell bank on your ship, that means you can recharge your shields at least 3 times for as much energy as that size shield cell bank holds. And then there's one last thing I'm going to show you, which is not in here because we already covered it under utility mounts, and that is a shield booster. And these shield boosters, let's go to the A's because there's really little point in using the other ones. These, you can see, are going to give you a 20% increase in the shield strength. So if your shield is 360, that means you can add another 72 hit points by putting one of these on. And with engineering, this goes from 20% all the way up to like 60% or higher even. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head. Or alternatively, with engineering, you could start boosting the individual resistances. So there's basically 3 shield components. This is the third one of the group. So if you're going to build a ship with shields, you want to use probably all 3 of these. What ships do I use shields on? Virtually all ships I put a shield on. But I put a smaller shield on ships that aren't military ships, like exploration ships will still have a shield, but it'll be maybe half the size of what I would put on a military ship. And it may not even contain any of these boosters on it. I'll just have the shield by itself. Obviously, military ships that are fighting non-Thargoids, that are fighting like NPCs, or PvP for humans, if you're going to use a shield for them, then you will use usually all 3 of these things. Anyway, guys, that concludes the video. It is almost an hour as well, so that means I've talked for 3 hours now in parts 1, 2, and 3 combined to cover all your options for the ship for a beginner. And of course, this only gets more complicated when you start throwing engineering in, because engineering adds multiple options for you for each of these pieces. This game can get very complex in a hurry, but hopefully what I'm talking about is going to help you figure out what you need to do in that first week or 2 or first month of gameplay, and it'll keep you interested in the game. Once again, I ask anybody that's actually watched all the way to the end, do let me know in comments, because I'm very curious to see how many people get to the very end, or if I should just be cutting these videos in half the size. Some people have told me that. I don't know. When I watch videos, I just want all the info about that particular topic to be in one video, and then I just scroll back and forth as I need to. I don't want to have to go back and forth to different videos, but maybe that's just me. So hopefully you got something out of this, and we'll see you in the next one.